Chinese emperor could basically take whatever they wanted. Also the notion of that they really downplayed the importance of trade. Merchants were the lowest class, and it was very high probability you get mugged on the road. China also went through periods of economic isolation, like Japan. I mean, yes, they tried along his treasure fleet with the Caspian, but then they called it back and they never tried trading again. So China basically had these opportunities, but due to a bunch of factors of not having property rights, of not having new financial institutions, they didn't develop. That's the argument. Same thing with the Middle East. Middle East is great. I mean, it's a very, very strategic part of the world. Mesopotamia is great when it comes to agriculture. The problem is that it's a very sparsely populated area. And as Smith says, you need lots of people in one area to have a really highly specialized labor force and have a large market. One's really stupid argument that one professor says it's camels versus roads. That if you have camels going through the desert, you don't need roads, so we don't have to develop things. And the problem is camels can't carry much stuff in bulk, so you never develop bulk trade. You just trade little shiny things that are spices, and that's sustained economic growth. Another issue, because we're economists, we can basically say whatever the heck we want. People blame religion and the Middle Eastern culture for its lack of growth. One of the most important, and this is fact, this is not even an argument, one of the most important reasons for economic growth in the 20th century is women entering the labor force. It's really great if you suddenly double your labor force for free. If you keep women at home with the kids, they're not working, they're not being productive, they're not making stuff. And the more people who make stuff, the better. So, we'll see in our final slides, we'll talk about women a little bit. So, in conclusion, if we see anything, learn anything today, basically, economic growth that we've seen historically is not the same thing as economic growth today. And we can't use some generalized model of European economic growth to try to understand why Cameroon isn't developed. The biggest question is, can we just spread Western institutions and Western investment in another country and magically expect it to grow just like we did? The argument clearly is no. So what is wrong? Is it government? Is it legal systems? There are all sorts of things that are going on that aren't in the equations. So from a Chicago school thought, the most important things for economic growth today, from a social perspective, are free trade, absolutely. We need Western capital to be able to come in and finance things. Human capital, no one's arguing with that. Human capital is getting education, being more productive. This ties in with women. Getting women in the labor force and educating women. The more you educate women, A, the better your labor force, and B, the more educated women, the higher opportunity cost of children they have for kids. Yes?
What exactly is free trade?
What is free trade? It's a very hard question. In this sense, what I mean is there being limited to no barriers in flow of goods and capital between countries. Let me explain. So, goods is easy. We tax, I don't know, well actually Europe did this in retaliation, taxing Florida orange juice. So if I'm a Florida farmer and I want to sell my orange juice in Europe, I have to pay tax. Or my prices go up there and they have to pay the tax. That's not good. That's goods. Capital is more complicated. Capital is, I'm a Chinese, we're wrestling with this today. A Chinese company wants to buy a US company. Can they do that? Can they only buy part of the company? Most countries have rules and regulations saying, only X percentage of this companies here can be owned by an outsider. Or if you're an outside company, you can't do this, or you have to pay extra, or there's something like that. The Chicago school says you would try to eliminate that, and capital can just be free and frolic wherever it wants. So that's that. Basically, our conclusion is it's way too complicated to do anything, and just blindly applying solo is not going to get us there. Question?
Are there any models floating around, like newly proposed ones that work slightly better, or is economic modeling just kind of a lost cause and everyone should just go home now?
No, it's not a lost cause because it does explain a lot. It's not consistent in its explanation though. I mean, a lot of people are really happy about the solo residual. basically this term that would explain everything. I mean, right now we use the solo model because frankly we don't have anything better, and we better shoot with some aim versus not shooting at all. But there's a lot more work to do, and it's basically that we can't put. That gets to the fundamental economic problem of how do you put people and their mindsets in an equation. It's very hard to do. We try. The problem is people are different in different countries. They have different development patterns, and when you try to generalize it, it falls apart. Yes. Yes.
So, I mean, obviously the point is that we don't have an explanation, but working on the things you were talking about, what you're saying that what some of the things that might have been the cause of the Dutch, like for the first time, growing is essentially their legal systems.
The legal systems, financial institutions, yes.
And
And
they were unique in the history of the world.
yes. And the argument is, well, if we just spread them to everybody else, then they'll just grow like us. And that's not, I mean, it's helping. I mean, it's hard to have good trade in a really, really corrupt South African or sub-Saharan African country. That's a huge part of it. But even if you give him education, you give him a legal system, are they still going to grow the same? We don't know. It's worth a shot. But, I mean, right now our approach is, let's just have Coca-Cola come and build some factories there. That's not going to necessarily work either. But in the equation it says if we boost the capital input ratio, then we're going to have more growth. So, I would argue that legal institutions are very important. Yes.
So what would these people have to say about microfinance and that approach to building economies?
Well, I mean, I don't. Here's the thing. We're looking at those equations are very macro. They're looking at the savings of an entire country. So stuff like microloans would barely make a splash in the pond for the macro model. However, I think they're right. I'm trying to think how they would answer that. I think they would say that it's changing the individual savings rate per person, and that would have a macro impact. But that's a good question. I'm not even sure they put that in there.
I mean, they did give him a Nobel Prize.
They didn't get free one too.
I mean,
Yes. Probably improvement's important.
proving free and wrong is what's important.
Anything else? Okay.
Were they trying to develop psychohistory?
Yes, they should have.